A green tea omega faked being an alpha to get into the school. He preached about being independent while secretly enjoying the doting care of my boyfriend. Later, my boyfriend abandoned me during my rut to go protect that omega. You're in a rut, just bite anyone, it's not a big deal. Stop being so dramatic for an alpha. He's an omega, he needs to be taken care of. But what he didn't know was that the omega had swapped my medication, causing me to have a severe asthma attack during my rut that nearly killed me. When we met again 6 months later, he was on his knees, begging me to forgive him. A tall alpha professor held me in his arms, exposing his own neck for me to bite and mark as I pleased. He said dotingly, "My partner is in the middle of his rut, he doesn't have time for you. And don't you dare provoke him." I made him cry last night and I still haven't managed to make it up to him. The mechanical engineering program only accepts alpha students. The coursework is intense and the physical training is brutal. It's famous for being a hellish major. I hadn't been feeling well lately, so during the long-distance run, I decided to slack off, intentionally falling to the back of the pack. The milky scent of pheromones wafted through the air as Julian gradually caught up to me. His tracksuit was tied loosely around his waist, outlining his slender figure. He was already losing steam on just the 17th lap, his pearly teeth biting into his lower lip, his beautiful face completely pale. I casually sped up and passed him. I saw his body tremble violently, his eyes burning with fury as if I were his mortal enemy. I smirked. Why would an omega try to compete with an alpha in stamina? The next second, Julian suddenly clenched his fists and gave chase, running as if his life depended on it. In the end, he crossed the finish line at the same time as me. "Heh, I'm just as good as you." After letting out a fierce shout, Julian coughed up a few drops of blood. His body suddenly went limp and he collapsed backward like a weightless feather, falling helplessly into darkness. Just then, a powerful force shoved me aside from behind. My boyfriend, Jake, rushed forward and caught Julian steadily in his arms. When he looked up at me, his eyes were bloodshot. "Leo, you knew Julian was an O. Why are you competing with him? Couldn't you have just let him win?" Jake and I grew up together. Even though we both presented as alphas, we fell in love and started dating. Jake had a natural aversion to delicate omegas until his roommate, Julian, showed up. Julian was fiercely competitive in everything and stood out among the freshmen. Later, a botched suppressant shot exposed his secret. He gritted his teeth and begged us, "Mechanical engineering is my lifelong dream. I have to study it. I don't want to be tied down by marriage and family my whole life like other omegas. I'm begging you." Of course, omegas could go to college, there were plenty of majors to choose from. But the engineering program genuinely didn't allow omegas. It was as strange as a girl insisting on using the men's restroom. This wasn't sexism, it was determined by biology. To my surprise, Jake bought it. He even said, "Julian isn't like those other omegas." From then on, Julian was a constant shadow at Jake's side. Jake's clothes started carrying the milky scent of Julian's pheromones, which drove me crazy. And whenever I'd get upset, Julian would lean on Jake's shoulder like a good buddy and joke, "Why is your boyfriend so sensitive and suspicious? Like an omega. A bro like me would never date you. I'm independent and just want to focus on my career. Okay?" Jake would laugh. It was like he was a different person, completely trusting and accepting of Julian. Julian was always trying to prove himself, often getting himself banged up in the process, intentionally or not showing his vulnerable side to Jake. At those moments, Jake would instinctively feel sorry for him, admire him, and take care of him, just like now. Jake looked at me as if I were some vicious, scheming monster. After venting his anger, he swept Julian into his arms and ran straight for the nurse's office, not even sparing me a second glance. Our relationship suddenly felt like a complete joke. "Leo, you don't look so good. You okay?" My ragged breathing caught the class rep's attention. He walked over and patted my shoulder. I reacted like I'd been electrocuted, grabbing his arm and flipping him over my shoulder in one smooth motion. "Whoa, dude, so aggressive. You must be in your rut. Go home and rest before you hurt someone." Alphas in their rut are extremely hostile to same-sex contact. They become angry, irritable, and want to mark everything as their own. Every rut I spent with Jake was torture for both of us. He rarely let me bite him after all. Being marked by another alpha feels disgusting. Sometimes I'd sneak a bite, and he'd get furious and we'd fight until we both collapsed from exhaustion. The rut would just sort of end in a blur. I think Jake took Julian to the nurse's office. He said he can't get away. You'll be okay on your own, right? The class rep kindly escorted me to my dorm room. He knew Jake and I were a couple and even called him for me. I waved the class rep away. My chest still felt tight, and my throat was starting to itch. I realized my old asthma might be acting up. I fumbled in my drawer, found a pill, and tossed it into my mouth before turning to throw away all the things Jake had given me. I didn't have the patience for a dramatic breakup. If I'm not happy, I end things. It saves everyone time. Suddenly, a suffocating feeling washed over me like a tidal wave. I crashed to the tile floor, clutching my throat and gasping for air as my body began to convulse uncontrollably. How could this be? I just took my medicine. Was there something wrong with the pill? I couldn't even scream. As my consciousness started to fade, I blindly unlocked my phone and dialed for help. Help. Whoever I called, just save me. Leo, stop messing around. I really can't leave right now. The nurse's office is full of alphas, and I'm worried something will happen to Julian. You're in a rut. Just go bite someone. Stop being so dramatic for an alpha. Dying doesn't feel good. My mind was still there, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't breathe. I could feel myself being carried into the hospital, doctors and nurses surrounding me, trying to save me. Why is this alpha still in his rut? Doesn't he have a partner? The emergency room was filled with my leaking pheromones, rampaging so intensely that even the alpha doctor's hands were trembling slightly. He switched me to the highest dose of suppressants. The moment the cold needle pierced my arm, a warm presence enveloped me. Wait a moment. I'll calm him down. Maybe the asthma medication was finally kicking in. Fresh air slowly began to fill my lungs. This tall, unfamiliar man picked me up, unbuttoned his shirt with one hand, and carefully released some of his pheromones. He was also an alpha, but I didn't hesitate. I bit down hard on his neck, instinctively wanting to mark him to make him mine. As my teeth broke his skin, the sharp, kerosene-like scent of his pheromones shot through my mind, exploding in my bloodstream. Yet it somehow soothed my racing heart. The second before I lost consciousness, I heard the man murmur in a husky voice, "The little guy's got some bite." I fell into a deep sleep in his arms, feeling an inexplicable sense of security. When I woke up again, the hospital room was quiet. My Omega father was outside talking to the doctor. Click. Jake stood up from the sofa and walked to my bedside, his face cold. "Leo, I can't believe you've become like this. Is this how you act just because I'm not here to get you through your rut? This just makes me hate you more and more." I closed my eyes, took a few deep breaths, and then crooked a finger at him. Jake frowned and walked closer. "Feeling bad now? Serves you right. Did you think this would make me feel sorry for you?" As he got close, I ripped out my 4 and swung. My fist connected with his nose, sending blood gushing as his face smashed into the tile floor. "Feel sorry for you? I'll make your whole body hurt. From now on, I'm beating you up every time I see you." Jake and I had a huge fight, leading to an unprecedented Cold War between us. Lab tests confirmed that my medication had indeed been swapped. It was a 4-person dorm room, but one bed was empty. That left just 2 other people, Jake and Julian. It was obvious who did it, but without security cameras, Julian would never admit it. "Baseless accusations will only make me look down on you. The innocent have nothing to fear. Don't drag me into your lover's quarrel." Julian lifted his chin and shot me a cold glare, his back perfectly straight as he grabbed his bag and left for class. Behind him, a look of horror crossed Jake's face. "Leo, your medicine? You had an attack that day because your pills were swapped? That's attempted murder." Jake's voice trembled. He rushed forward to grab my hand, but I punched him square in the nose again. The loud crack made Julian freeze in his tracks. I smiled faintly and zipped up Julian's backpack for him. I haven't even said anything. Feeling guilty? I just wanted to tell you, if something had happened to me that day, the perpetrator would be charged with murder. Since I'm fine, it's attempted murder. Both land you in jail. I'll see this through to the end. The color drained from Julian's face. He tried to act calm and warned me, don't be so hostile and target me just because I'm an Omega. I just want to study in peace. I'm not trying to steal anything from you. This is a university. Anyone could have gotten into our room. Julian confidently assumed Jake would back him up. His eyes shimmered with a desperate, fragile light as he swayed and leaned toward Jake. But he didn't know. To accommodate him, an Omega, Jake had already replaced our door and window locks with the latest models. He never allowed anyone else to set foot in our room. Any business was handled outside the door. This time, the way Jake looked at Julian was different. Throughout the entire lecture, Jake didn't say a single word to Julian. Of course, I didn't say anything to him either. Our regular professor was out, and the substitute was a very young male professor named Alex Shaw, who taught third-year courses. Black jeans hugged his long legs, and he wore a crisply ironed gray shirt. A corner of a suppressant patch was visible at his collar. Broad shoulders, a narrow waist, sharp brows, and piercing eyes. His features were cold and handsome. If this were any other major full of Omegas, he would have been the campus heartthrob, winning countless hearts. But in the eyes of Alphas, he just looked like a highly aggressive and formidable peer. Jake messaged me throughout the class. When I didn't reply to a single one, he cornered me by the professor's desk after class ended. He was still scared, apologizing profusely. Then, with red-rimmed eyes, he asked cautiously, I'll definitely investigate and deal with Julian. I had no idea you were going through something like that. Can you give me a chance to make it up to you? Didn't I say I'd beat you up every time I see you? Just because he was willing to admit his mistake. Did that mean I had to forgive him? I dropped my bag, rolled my shoulders, and was about to swing when a large hand suddenly grabbed me from behind. Leo, fighting in the classroom isn't a good look. Come to my office for a chat. Professor Shaw stood on the platform, looking down at me. His tall figure completely overshadowed me, creating an indescribable sense of pressure. Before I could speak, Jake lost his temper, coldly demanding, I have something to discuss with Leo. What gives you the right to call a student away alone, Professor Shaw? Are you two that close? You're just a substitute teacher. Professor Shaw clicked his tongue in annoyance, glanced down at me, and then ripped the suppressant patch off his neck with one hand. The sharp scent of kerosene slowly drifted out, mingled with a subtle hint of ebony, clean, with a touch of bitterness. Stunned both me and Jake for a moment. That was my pheromone scent. Are Leo and I close? I'd say so. He bit me, marked me as his property. Would you call that close? So, he was the one I bit at the hospital. An alpha cannot be marked by another alpha. Being injected with another alpha's pheromones is a painful and humiliating experience, and it takes days for the scent to fade. Jake hated having my scent on him. He'd throw a fit every time, even starting fights with me. Even though we were supposed to be the closest of lovers, his fastidiousness and pride wouldn't allow it. But now, Jake's eyes turned red with hatred in an instant. He gripped my arm tightly and demanded, Why does he have your pheromones? I'm your boyfriend, ex-boyfriend. You want another beating? I said coldly, the tart scent of wine beginning to fill the air. Jake frantically released his pheromones, his emotional breakdown mixed with towering rage, trying to intimidate everyone. The classroom quickly emptied. Even I felt sick from the smell. Professor Shaw just smirked and closed his textbook. The next second, a much more potent kerosene scent exploded in the air, fiercely consuming the wine smell. It was overpowering, bringing with it a nearly suffocating sense of fear. Professor Shaw was an S-class alpha. Jake was so overwhelmed that his face turned deathly pale. His body trembled uncontrollably, and he couldn't form a complete sentence. I also broke out in a cold sweat, my limbs going weak. Just then, a strong arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me into an embrace. Student Jake, you seem to only smell of milk. What's your connection to Leo? I'm the one he marked. I'm his now. Step aside. The fear from his pheromonal pressure kept me from moving. A few broken whimpers escaped my throat, earning a low chuckle from Professor Shaw. I'm 6 feet tall, but Professor Shaw easily lifted me with one arm, grabbed his textbook with the other, and calmly walked out of the classroom. As the kerosene scent dissipated, Jake collapsed to his knees, his entire back soaked in sweat. His body was tense, and he was too humiliated to lift his head. His chest heaved with each breath, as if about to unleash an endless torrent of rage. After some time, a soft, cold hand tugged at his sleeve. Jake, help me, I feel awful." Turned out Julian had been hiding in the classroom, watching the whole time. The successive waves of alpha pheromones had sent him straight into heat. A gleam of light sparked in Jake's dark, gloomy eyes as they slowly fell upon the flushed face of Julian. Professor Shaw took me to his private office and set me down on his large desk. Once my head cleared, I immediately jumped off the desk and apologized, even tearing a blank check from a checkbook and telling him to fill in the numbers. Professor Shaw unbuttoned his cuffs and glanced at me nonchalantly. "You think I charge by the hour?" My scalp tingled. I didn't know how to explain. Suddenly, Professor Shaw leaned in, trapping me against the wall with his arms. "Listen, you bit someone, so you have to take responsibility. Didn't they teach you in health class what comes next? You were my first, you know. I've been a good boy for 30 years, and now I've got your scent all over me for days. A lot of people have noticed, and you're just gonna brush me off with a check?" Professor Shaw was so close that his hot breath fanned across my face, making my heart skip a few beats. I explained, "Even though I just broke up with someone, I don't want to. This was an accident. What do you want me to do?" Professor Shaw pursed his lips, a barely there smile flashing in his dark eyes. He said, "Well, the damage is done. My reputation is ruined. If my partner's scent just suddenly disappears, what will people think of me? That Professor Shaw from Mech E finally got into a relationship and got dumped in less than a week? That's embarrassing. It would be more normal to date for at least a year before a peaceful breakup, don't you think?" I ran a hand through my hair in frustration. But whether it was because he was a professor or an S-class alpha, I didn't dare cross him. "So you mean I have to?" Professor Shaw shrugged helplessly and unbuttoned the second and third buttons of his shirt, revealing the already fading bite mark. "We just started dating, so we should be in the honeymoon phase, right? The ebony scent on me seems to be fading, don't you think? He just wanted me to bite him a couple more times. Fine. We were both men, both alphas. No one was taking advantage of anyone." I calmed my racing heart, stepped forward, grabbed Professor Shaw's arm, and pressed against his neck. Fine, as long as you're okay with it. There's no loss for me." The moment my teeth broke his skin, both our phones buzzed simultaneously. Immediately after, the school's various group chats exploded with notifications. Huge gossip. "Julian from Mech E is an Omega. He's in heat and crawling all over campus. Come see." During his heat, Julian had tried to seek protection from Jake, curling up fragilely at his feet, tears of desperation rolling down his face. But this time, Jake just called the support services and left him to his fate. "I really hate disgusting, troublesome Omegas like you. Am I your dad? Do I have to take care of everything for you?" The cloyingly sweet milky scent erupted from the classroom and filled the entire academic building, affecting countless alphas who began to get restless. To save himself, Julian had to flee toward an open area, looking like he'd been dragged out of water, crawling on his hands and knees in a complete loss of dignity. When Jake saw that I was also watching, he immediately ran to my side to explain. "You wanted to see if I would help him, right? My head is completely clear now. I'm not affected by Julian at all. You know, I have a physical revulsion to delicate Omegas like him. You're giving me a headache. I just came to see if Julian was still lucid. The police just called. They found a partial fingerprint on the pills he swapped. He's about to be investigated." Jake's face turned white. Julian's eyes widened in terror, slowly being consumed by despair. Overnight, everyone in school knew about Julian. Swapping my asthma medication was a clear violation of federal law. However, The Omega Protection Act stipulated that Omegas between the ages of 18 and 30 had to have at least one child before they could be imprisoned, as procreation was considered their most important duty. In other words, for now, Julian would only receive a disciplinary notice from the school. As for him faking being an alpha to get into the Mech-E program, on his first day back on campus, he instigated an Omega rights movement. He questioned the admissions policy of the engineering department, claiming it was gender discrimination. He used public opinion to pressure the school, forcing them to let him continue his studies in the program. On the first day of our junior year, Julian breezed over his own transgressions and spoke with grand ambition. "I admit I made a mistake, but it's a mistake any Omega would make. I was just so jealous of alphas who are born superior. Why are they born as the elite while we Omegas are always left behind? I'm standing here again just to tell everyone. 8 years ago, Chris became the first Omega in the mecha piloting program. 8 years later, I will also break new ground and become the most outstanding Omega in the mechanical engineering department." Julian had put on some light makeup, his delicate, beautiful face glowing with a noble, untouchable coolness that drew admiration from the crowd. But he probably didn't know. Chris was a once-in-a-century genius in the mecha piloting program. Julian might not have that kind of talent. More importantly, a mechanic is not the same as a mecha pilot. He would learn in the very first class of his junior year that a mechanic is a mecha's lifeblood. On the interstellar battlefield, with no retreat, the final material used to repair a mecha is the alpha mechanic themselves. An Omega's inherently fragile bones are decidedly not suitable for being mecha material. Before junior year classes officially began, the Mech-E program held a physical fitness assessment to test the results of our first 2 years of training. In teams of 4, without any supplies, we had to traverse a tropical jungle for 48 hours to reach a designated point to pass. Along the way, we had to retrieve a set of mecha blueprints. After drawing lots, I ended up on a team with Jake, Julian, and the class rep. We changed into our black training uniforms, and the class rep couldn't help but compliment me. "Leo, your legs are amazing. A handsome guy looks good even in a potato sack." Jake immediately chimed in with a smile. "Leo has always been handsome." That's how he captivated me. I gave him a flat look. "Thanks, but you look pathetic trying so hard to win me back." "Shut up." The smile froze on Jake's face, and he looked completely lost. Julian had already started off. The standard issue training uniform was baggy on him, yet he had cinched the waist extra tight, his slender and delicate figure drawing frequent glances from the other alphas. He himself didn't seem to care, walking openly without even a suppressant patch, the milky scent around him making everyone's heart itch. He turned back to remind us, "I just want to pass this fitness test. My mind is on my studies. Can you guys hurry up and follow?" Jake immediately scoffed, putting on an act again. So pathetic. Though he cursed him harshly, his eyes couldn't help but follow Julian. Every time Julian made a mistake, Jake would immediately curse him, complain about him, and direct all his malice toward him. But when other alphas got close to Julian, he would drive them away, not letting anyone else touch him. It was actually quite interesting to watch after a while. I've known Jake for over a decade. His feelings couldn't be more obvious. Did he hate Julian? It looked to me like he was slowly being drawn back in by this version of Julian, his heart wavering back and forth. It was truly nauseating. After more than 20 hours, we had to cross a swamp. We could use vines to swing to the other side, but a vine needed the weight of 2 people to be held down. Jake and the class rep went first to scout the situation. Once they confirmed it was safe, I would go with Julian. About 15 minutes later, Jake's team gave the signal. Julian gripped the vine and asked if I was ready to go. A cold smile touched my lips as I reached out and grabbed him by the back of his collar. "You forgot, didn't you? We still have a score to settle." This was the first and only chance I'd had to be alone with Julian since I reported him to the police. I slowly pulled out a bottle of the fake pills, the same kind he had swapped. The color drained from Julian's face instantly, but he couldn't escape. I quickly wrapped the vine around him, pried his mouth open, and poured the entire bottle of fake pills in, letting him have his fill. He twisted concepts, stirred up conflict, and exploited legal loopholes. so I would punish him my way. Julian broke down in tears, gagging and struggling as I grabbed the vine and swung us toward the opposite bank, the wind drowning out all his cries for help. After we landed, Julian threw up until he was dizzy, his body curled into a tight ball, unable to even speak a complete sentence. I said calmly, he must be terrified. We don't have much time. Let's go. Jake immediately grabbed the class rep and caught up to me. Heh, that disgusting Omega is playing the victim to get sympathy again. So pathetic. Julian cried hysterically for a long time, only wiping his tears and catching up half an hour later, his gaze dark and unsettling. We reached the marked location but couldn't find the mecha blueprints. The rain was getting heavier, and with night approaching, we needed to find something for warmth, but we were way behind schedule without the blueprints. Julian immediately grabbed my arm. Leo and I will keep looking for the blueprints. Let's split up. I didn't know what new trick he was pulling, but we were running out of time and really did need to divide the work. I shook him off and went into the jungle alone. A few minutes later, Julian fell into a trap and cried out for me. I think my leg is broken. Leo, are you there? Please, help me. Like I would ever help him. I even quickened my pace to get away from him. But who would have thought? Julian started crying out. Leo, I know you can hear me calling for help. Are you going to bring your personal grudges to the interstellar battlefield in the future too? Are you going to abandon your teammates, your comrades? I really look down on you. I stopped in my tracks. Just then, a strong milky scent exploded in the air. Julian had cut his own arm to release his pheromones. Under the impact of the Omega pheromones, my mind instinctively went blank for a few seconds. Julian took the opportunity to latch onto me, grabbing my neck as we plunged straight down into a bottomless dark pit. Honestly, I hate you so much. You're an alpha, but you're so beautiful. Your family is rich, and Jake is hopelessly devoted to you. Why do you get all the good things? What am I lacking compared to you? I really wish you would just die. Julian used me as a cushion as we hit the bottom of the pit. I was unconscious for a full half hour. When I came to, Jake and the class rep had both jumped down. Julian was kneeling behind me, sobbing hysterically. I saw Leo fall, but I couldn't save him on my own. I had to cut my arm and use my pheromones to call for you. Thank God you made it. Shut up. Your disgusting smell is everywhere. If anything happens to Leo, I'll kill you. Jake was cursing beside me, yet he tore off half his sleeve to bandage Julian's arm, not even glancing at me. The class rep carefully asked if I could move and what had happened. Julian watched me warily, ready to strike back at any moment. His scheming expression was laughable. If I got entangled with him, I'd become just as disgusting as he was. I numbly pushed myself off the ground. I saw where the blueprints were when we were falling. Let's get them and go. We're running out of time. Julian wiped the tears from his cheeks, a triumphant smile touching his lips. Along with the blueprints were 2 chocolate bars, our only food. Jake immediately snatched them and held them out to me, while still lecturing Julian, you don't get any of this, you hear me? You've done nothing but drag us down the whole way. Omegas are such a hassle. The pain in my body was screaming. I had no patience for Jake and turned to continue toward the finish line. After midnight, the rain became a downpour. We could see nothing but the faint glow of our flashlights. The class rep suggested we rest where we were. He quickly set up a temporary shelter, and the 4 of us huddled inside. Jake started complaining again. So annoying. I hate being this close to an Omega. Can you move farther away? Probably because the wound on my back was getting infected, I soon passed out again. I was only woken up 4 hours later by the class rep. Leo, I think you have a fever. Can you hold on? You haven't eaten in over a day. I'll get a piece of chocolate from Jake for you. Took me a long moment to get up from the ground. I was about to refuse when Jake and Julian pushed through the bushes and returned. Jake still looked annoyed, but Julian's cheeks were flushed, his head bowed shyly. There were tiny chocolate crumbs on the corner of his pink lips. It was obvious what they had been doing while they were alone. Leo, you look terrible. Let me help you walk, Julian offered with false concern, a hint of a victor's pride in his eyes. It was as if he were showing off to me, flaunting how Jake favored him, giving him all the chocolate, and taking care of him with a tough love attitude. I told the class rep to hurry up, not bothering to deal with Julian. After about another 4 or 5 hours of walking, I accidentally tripped on a rock. Julian once again rushed up to me. "Let me help you. Get lost." Jake finally couldn't take it anymore and stepped forward to reason with me. "Julian saved your life, you know. We're all teammates. Can we stop with the temper tantrums for a bit? Leo?" I turned and punched Jake hard in the face. "You believe whatever he says? What if I said I was Julian's father? Would you believe that?" The next second, a playful voice sounded from a distance. "Looks like you all still have energy for a fight." "Huh?" I looked up to see a pair of long, straight legs. A black tank top hugged a muscular upper body, with a training jacket slung casually over one shoulder. It was Professor Shaw. He was one of the instructors for this assessment. He told us bluntly that the finish line was just a few hundred meters away, but he wasn't going to let us pass so easily. "You have energy to fight, right? Now, everyone, give me 200 push-ups on the spot." Julian's face turned pale with fear, but as we all got down to start, he had no choice but to get into position, his hands barely supporting him. Professor Shaw walked coldly past him and kicked him in his sagging lower back. "Proper form. You want to be the first Omega, and this is all you've got." Julian whimpered and fell into the mud, painfully explaining, "Professor, my arm is already injured." Professor Shaw retorted slowly, "What, you ate 2 chocolate bars and now you can't even do a push-up? You know exactly how your arm got injured, don't you?" Julian flinched with guilt and quickly looked away. Jake stepped up to explain for him. "That's not it, Professor." Julian intentionally cut his arm to call for our help. "Leo accidentally fell into a pit, and he did it to save him. Whether he was saving a teammate or framing one will be clear during the review. But right now, I didn't tell you to stop your push-ups. Add another 200. Julian was slacking, so he gets another 200 too." Jake clenched his fists, slowly releasing his pheromones to express his anger. Professor Shaw decisively kicked him in the shoulder, sending him flying several meters. "If you have a problem with it, you can do 400. As soon as he finished speaking, I spoke up hoarsely from the side. "I finished my 200. Can I proceed?" Professor Shaw turned and looked me up and down, his dark eyes filled with complex emotions. I licked my chapped lips, took the team badge from the class rep's pocket, and ran toward the finish line with all my remaining strength. After 200 push-ups, the wound on my back had split open and was bleeding again. Mixed with sweat, it had soaked through my entire shirt, and the scent of ebony began to leak out. Jake's expression changed as he belatedly realized what was happening. The moment I crossed the finish line and collapsed, he screamed and ran toward me. "Leo, I didn't know you were so badly hurt. I'm sorry." But he was a step too late. I fell into a warm, strong embrace. A large jacket, scented with alpha pheromones, was draped over my head, enveloping me completely. "Congratulations, student. You've just secured first place for your team." Professor Shaw's deep, hoarse voice sounded in my ear. He used the hug to roughly rub against the back of my neck. "Also, let me express my dissatisfaction. You reek of that Omega. If I smell it on you again, I'll punish you until your legs give out." The domineering S-class pheromones completely enveloped me, yet they made me feel incredibly secure. So, I let myself lean wantonly into Professor Shaw's embrace, riding out the dizzy spell from my low blood sugar. Jake stood a few steps away, watching us quietly, his eyes red. From Shaw's words, he had already understood what happened. He desperately wanted to explain, but it felt like a heavy stone was crushing his chest, making it painful to breathe. After 5 minutes, I regained some strength and gently pushed Professor Shaw away. Julian had reached the finish line by then, a beautiful smile on his face. "Are we in first place?" "Hee. I knew it. With our skills, we were bound to." He was cut off mid-sentence as I grabbed him by the collar and lifted him up, choking him until his face turned red and he struggled desperately. I slapped him to make him behave. Then I dragged him all the way to the edge of a slope and, ignoring his pleas and screams, kicked him down hard. Me tolerating you doesn't mean I'm afraid of you. It's because I had to finish the assessment, and you weren't worth my time. You accused me of abandoning a teammate, but how did you treat me? You tricked me into a trap because you wanted me dead. On the battlefield, I would never abandon a comrade. But I am ashamed to have a teammate like you. Whoever gets teamed up with you must have the worst luck imaginable. I broke 3 of Julian's ribs and knocked the implant in his nose out of place. He had to recover for a month before returning to class. Of course, I wasn't much better off. My wound got infected and I was on an 4 drip for a whole week, my back a bloody mess. Professor Shaw didn't hold anyone responsible, tacitly allowing us to settle all our grievances privately. From then on, Julian would take a detour whenever he saw me. Our team won first place in the assessment, earning us a chance to do a study tour at the front lines before our senior year graduation. Before that, we still had 2 years of specialized courses to complete. The news of my relationship with Professor Shaw also spread. To protect his pride, I diligently bit him once a week, fulfilling my end of the bargain. It seemed obvious to everyone that he was thoroughly enjoying this relationship. He would proudly wear my pheromones to declare his ownership, and when the whole class was teasing us, he would calmly call on me. For the next question, let's have my little boyfriend answer. No matter how busy he was with work, he would stay with me through my entire rut, never leaving my side. Bite a little gentler, my little monster. I have a class this afternoon. I had never been so doted on during a rut before. I became even more audacious, taking over his office, wearing his suit jacket, and sitting on his lap, biting him wantonly. The feeling of marking an S-class alpha was simply incredible. Just after midnight, the room was filled with a suffocatingly thick pheromone scent. At some point, Jake appeared at the office door, holding a melted ice cream cake and my 22nd birthday present. His throat was tight, and with red-rimmed eyes, he softly called my name, Leo. We promised to spend every birthday together. Have you forgotten? I was so stupid and foolish before, letting Julian trick me so many times. Can you ever forgive me? I didn't even want to look back at him. I buried my face in Professor Shaw's chest, nuzzling him, which made him hold me even tighter. His long index finger tapped the desk a few times. Student Jake, it's after work hours. Please leave my office. My partner is in his rut and has no time for you. And don't you dare provoke him. I made him cry last night and I still haven't managed to make it up to him. The cake slipped from Jake's hands and smashed on the floor. Tears streamed down his face, as if the last thread of sanity in his mind had snapped. Long after he left, my head cleared a bit. I broke the silence in the office. This is all fake, right? Should we clear things up now? Professor Shaw rested his chin on the top of my head and chuckled, his voice lazy and husky. Then let's clear things up. There are no such things as coincidences in this world. Everything was deliberately planned by me. I love the flowers of spring, the trees of summer, the sunsets of autumn, the winter sun, and you every single day. You don't have to give me an answer right away. I'll wait patiently for it. Before our senior year graduation, our 4-person team was scheduled for a study tour at the front lines. With the Federation constantly at war in recent years, getting to touch the latest active duty mechs at the front was every engineering student's dream. When we reported to the base, we arrived right in the middle of an offensive. The commander only had a few minutes to assign us tasks. Julian, being the only Omega, was about to introduce his excellent academic record when the commander walked right past him and clapped me on the shoulder. We meet again, Leo. In an instant, all eyes were on me, because my alpha father was also a top-tier mechanic, and he was buried right here on this interstellar battlefield. And now, I was unhesitatingly following in his footsteps. Amid the commotion, only Julian sneered under his breath, probably some useless mechanic who got himself killed. A mechanic's job is just to repair mechs. Couldn't he run when there was danger? I heard him, but I didn't bother to argue. If that was the attitude he brought to the front lines, reality would be his best punishment. The commander's time was limited. After giving us our assignments, he left in a hurry. Just before leaving, he seemed to remember something and asked me, "By the way, I hear you know Professor Shaw well? He left his commander position just 3 years ago, right? Transferred to teach in the engineering department? I was stunned for a moment. In fact, I didn't know much about Professor Shaw's past. He used to be a mecha commander? Just as I was about to ask more, a piercing alarm blared through the base. The base was facing an emergency. Our study tour was forcibly cut short, and we even had to fill in for the shortage of mechanics and head directly to the front lines. The commander would never let students get involved unless it was absolutely necessary, which showed just how serious the situation was. The commander assigned us relatively simple tasks, but they still required crossing a line of fire and carried a certain level of danger. Still in a team of 4? No problem. I'm the class rep. I'll definitely protect everyone. No, it's a solo mission. The commander announced this decision with a grim expression, and the air fell into a dead silence. I agreed without hesitation. Jake hesitated for a few seconds before silently taking off the good luck charm he had worn around his neck for over 20 years and stuffing it into my hand. I casually tossed it on the table. At that moment, Julian spoke up indignantly, "Sorry, I'm an Omega. Isn't there an Alpha mechanic to take the lead?" In an instant, all eyes were on him, but he felt he was superior, telling everyone he was the top Omega student from the engineering department, a special exception who shouldn't be the first to be sent to his death on the front lines. As he was preparing another long-winded speech, the commander slapped him across the face. "My base doesn't welcome cowards. You chose this path yourself. Regardless of your gender, there are no special privileges." Julian was completely panicked. He put on his combat suit with trembling hands, then gently tugged on Jake's sleeve with his soft hand, tears rolling fiercely down his cheeks. "Jake, you know I'm special, right? This isn't something I should be doing. I'm scared I can't handle it. You have to help me." This time, Jake didn't even give him a second glance. For the first 4 hours after we set out, we maintained close contact with the base. But after a sharp scream from Julian over the comms, a massive explosion roared through our earpieces, and all contact was cut. The explosion seemed to have come from the class rep's direction. "Leo, thank God. I found you." The strong smell of blood mixed with the scent of wine filled my nose as Jake, covered in blood, ran toward me. He could no longer control his leaking pheromones, which showed just how badly he was injured. Rumor had it there was an internal problem, and our casualties were high. I was unwilling to give up and wanted to continue the mission, but Jake grabbed my hand tightly, giving up the struggle. "Don't waste your energy. The base is gone. We might not be able to leave this place. Honestly, Leo, if my last moments are with you, I'll have no regrets. So what if Professor Shaw is better than me? In the end, I'll be the one buried with you, our blood mixed together." Hate slowly colored my vision. I turned and knelt, punching Jake several times, completely disappointed in him. "So you don't understand responsibility or mission either. You lying here giving up is a perfect match for the deserter Julian. If you want to die, die alone. I still have a mission to complete and a home to return to." Jake struggled, coughing up mouthfuls of blood, but he laughed with a mad obsession, refusing to let go of my hand. Just then, the disconnected earpiece crackled back to life. A deep, husky voice came through. "Mechie study tour team. The base has been destroyed and the commander is missing. What's your status?" My heart skipped a beat. I quickly reported our situation to Professor Shaw. A few seconds later, he gave me several precise coordinates, planning a mission route for me and trying to contact my teammates. Just before the signal cut out, he suddenly said my name. "Actually, I was one of the commanders in the battle where your father sacrificed himself. I was closest to him at the time. I witnessed the explosion firsthand. For a long time after, I was trapped in nightmares and self-blame, regretting that I didn't do something. I even stepped down to a teaching position. Until I met you. You are a captivating person, strong, persistent, outstanding. My eyes are always involuntarily drawn to you. You also made me understand that fighting for one's beliefs and mission until the very last second is the best end for a mechanic." A few heavy breaths came through the earpiece. Jake had woken up at some point. He lay quietly on the ground, watching me, a single tear tracing a path from the corner of his eye. He had heard everything. He also heard, just before the signal died, Professor Shaw say to me in a very, very soft voice, "My blatant love for you is my salvation. Leo, please complete your mission and come back to me. I'm waiting for your answer." Our study tour ended chaotically. Only I completed the commander's mission, returning safely with a heavily injured Jake. Julian had tried to desert by blending in with a group of Omegas being evacuated, but his reputation was too great. He was quickly recognized and verbally torn apart. "Weren't you going to break down gender stereotypes? Aren't you the best Omega in the Mech-E program? Why are you running away at a time like this?" Julian was quickly driven away. Luckily, the class rep was nearby and saved his life. "I'm the class rep. I said I would always protect everyone. Stick with me." Julian begged the class rep to help him complete his mission. Unfortunately, he had remembered the mission location incorrectly and miscalculated all the coordinates. He could only watch as the class rep was engulfed in the flames of an explosion. Once again, he turned and ran. Not long after, he was captured by the enemy. He tried to trade secrets, but he was an Omega. Influenced by pheromones, he went straight into heat. This time, there was no playing the victim to get any protection. After graduating with my master's degree, I officially inherited my father's service number and became a mechanic on the front lines. Jake retired and returned to the Capital Star, occasionally sending me messages about how much he regretted things. He said he was waiting for someone to come home. I mailed him an inflatable dummy that day and told him to get his head checked again. New Year's was approaching, and the entire base was filled with a festive atmosphere. Only Commander Shaw was wearing a gloomy expression, restlessly searching for something, floor by floor. A tall, lean figure approached from a distance, combat boots encasing long legs, broad-shouldered and narrow-waisted. A voice as clear and cold as jade was filled with mockery. "For God's sake, can you rein in those pheromones? Your little one isn't taking care of you during your rut?" Professor Shaw looked up and grunted, "Chris," without stopping his attempts to open doors. No one in the break room either. Professor Shaw muttered a curse and turned to search the next floor. Chris raised an eyebrow, a mocking smile on his face. "Look at you, all hungry and unsatisfied. TSK, TSK. But soon, a tall man wrapped him in an embrace from behind, greedily burying his face in the crook of his neck. "Big brother, I'm not satisfied either. What should I do?" Sob. Professor Shaw finally found me in the maintenance bay. I was bent over, tightening the last screw, about to wipe the grease from my face when my body suddenly went light. I was lifted up, hot breath close behind me, as Professor Shaw slowly extended his tongue and licked my cheek. My face instantly flushed crimson, but he was completely shameless. "Happy New Year. I'm here to collect my New Year's gift." "What? Hey, don't bite. I still have work to." The rest of my words were swallowed by a fiery and intense kiss, our two hearts pressing tightly together, beating in perfect sync. After who knows how long, a news alert popped up on both our phones simultaneously. Julian exchanged and returned to the country. This meant he would finally face trial, paying the price for all his mistakes. Attempted murder, treason, framing others, and in the 4 years he was a captive, he had already given birth to 4 children. No Omega Protection Act could shield him now. This was the karma he deserved. As I read the last line, a piercing alarm blared through the base. Professor Shaw's already dark expression grew even fouler, his pheromones becoming suffocatingly strong. I smiled and booped his nose, then turned to run for assembly. When the sun rises, we devote ourselves to our work. When the sun sets, we embrace our loved ones. Unfortunately, Commander Shaw's New Year's gift will have to be collected another day. You'll just have to bear with it.